Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram, friends. Today is in continuation of the discussion that we had yesterday on Sāṃkhya philosophy. So we'll start with the first sessions. Yesterday was more of an overview of what we'll be covering as part of the scope. Today we will be starting with the first few sections discussed in the agenda yesterday. So before proceeding further, I would like to start with humble prayers. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Guruve Sarvalokanam, Vishade Pavaroginam, Vidye Sarva Vidhyanam, Shri Dakshinamurte Namaha, Venda Takkadariyo, Ni Venda Murudum Tarvo, Ni Vendi Enmalariyo, Ni Vendi Enne Penikunda, Vendi Niyadal Seidai, Yanamadum, Vendumalal, Vendum Parisundrum, Deniladum, the Nukamandro, Jnānānandamayam Devam, Nirmala Spatika Gratam, Ādharam, Sarva Vidhyanam, Sagripa Pasmahe, Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Bhaje Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Janaki Namachandram Bhaje Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarubini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhi Bhatme Sada Padmapatra Visalakshi Padma Kesari Vardhini Nityam Padmalayam Ayul Dehi Dhanam Dehi Vidyan Dehi Maheshwari அல்லல்வோம் வல்வினைவோம் மண்ணை வயிற்றில் பிறந்து தொல்லைவோம் போகாத்தேனும்போம் நல்ல குணமதிக மாமரனை கோபுரத்தில் வீற்றிருக்கும் கணபதியை கைத்தொழுதற்கால் காட்டு வழி போனாலும் கல்லர் மயமானாலும் கெட்டு வழி காலனார் வந்து கிட்டிடினும் நாட்டமுடன் நம்பிக்கை உண்டே விநாயகனார் தும்பிக்கை உண்டே துணை உருவாய் அருவாய் உளதாய் இலதாய் மறுவாய் மலராய் மணியாய் ஒளியாய் கருவாய் உயிராய் கதியாய் விதியாய் குருவாய் வருவாய் அருள்வாய் குகனே சுனியே சனமையப்பா திருப்பிரகாச வல்லலா திவ்ய திருவடிகளே சரணம் வள்ளல் மலரடி வாழ்க வாழ்க எல்லா உயிர்களும் இன்புற்று வாழ்க அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி. I will start with sharing this screen. 1 minute. So we will discuss on the Sāṃkhya philosophy from various dimensions, and as the current focus we will be focusing on its guruparaṃparā, its historiographical context, as well as the important treatises around it. So Sāṃkhya darśana is the first darśana that we are looking at in depth. So with this, I move on to the actual agenda, which we already discussed yesterday, but I just wanted to re-highlight that here. So we will today focus on the first three part of this agenda, that is on the guruparaṃparā and the historical reference, as well as the important treatises. Subsequent sessions we will be discussing about the etymology of the term sāṃkhya from a philosophical context, and we will be talking about the two major categories that makes up Sāṃkhya's ontological system, which is the Purusha and the Prakriti. And then we will be moving on how they are related, both from a relationship in terms of a wedlock, sacred wedlock, as well as in terms of the more epistemological seer scene relationship. And then we will be moving on to providing a theological context of Sāṃkhya darśana, how there is both theism and atheism, along with the agnosticism, integrated into Sāṃkhya philosophy from its overall scope. And then we will be discussing about the three major gunas which are responsible for the entire manifestation of according to manifestation of the phenomenal world according to Sāṃkhya darśana. And then we will be looking at the cosmological aspects discussed in Sāṃkhya, right from its temporal, spatial, and causal relationship. Following which we will be getting into the divine cosmogony and the theogenical aspects of it. So we will be discussing it under four major phases, and following that we will be moving on to the ontological models discussed in Sāṃkhya darśana. See, these ontological models are again divided into two major categories. One, the ontological evolutes, which are the tattvas, and the ontological dispositions, which are the bhavas. So we'll be touching upon both of them, and then how these are mapped in terms of the emanation principles. So that is what the scope of the ontology will be there. And within the ontology of tattvas, we will be discussing the three available models within Sāṃkhya. There is a 24 principle model. Then there is a more popular or the more standardized part of classical Sāṃkhya, which is a 25 model, and the 26 model. So the 25 model, 25 principles model, which includes the Purusha on the one side and Prakriti and its evolutes making up the 24 principles, and Purusha is the 25th. This 25 principle model itself has various submodels within it. We will be discussing all of these variations as described in different treatises of Sāṃkhya darśana. And then coming to the 26 principles, where the 26 principles is the 26th principle is beyond the 25th Purusha, where this Purusha, the 25th principle of Purusha, is considered as the Jivatma, and the 26th is the Paramatma. So, how this Paramatma is classified in different theological schools of Indian wisdom, including Saivam, Saktam, and Vaishnavam. So, we will be seeing how these 26 principles are reflected in these doctrines, in these schools. And then we will be discussing about the various dispositions, which are again, as I said, another kind of ontological entities. Then we will be moving into the epistemology discussed in Sāṃkhya, which includes various pramanas, the three major pramanas of perception, inference, and testimony. And then we will be moving on to Moksha Shastra, which is provides us both the soteriological and also the eschatological scope of Sāṃkhya philosophy. And finally, we will be providing a critical comparison of Sāṃkhya with other darshanas, including Vedanta darshanas, as well as the Agamanta darshanas or the Siddhanta darshanas, as well as comparing it with the Western philosophies, both ancient Greek and the medieval philosophies, and finally the comparison with the modern science. So this overall covers the agenda, of which the first three sections is what we will be discussing in this video. And to start with, we'll be discussing on the first line item here, which is on the guruparaṃparā. So with this agenda context setting, we move on to the actual focus here, which is on the guruparaṃparā. So, according to orthodox Indian philosophy, the guruparaṃparā of sāṃkhya darśana starts with Lord Mahavishnu. So, from him, the knowledge transition or the avatarana of jñāna passes through Kapila Maharishi, who is considered to be the founding Maharishis of the Sāṃkhya darśana, and from him it gets handed over through generations to different Maharishis and Acharyas. For example, Kapila Maharishi has inducted Asuri Maharishi into the scheme. So from Asuri Maharishi, Panchashika Maharishi is the next guru in the lineage, and so on. It goes to Vindhyavasa Maharishi, and finally it reaches to Ishvara Krishna, who is the last rung in the traditional parampara. Of course, after Ishvara Krishna, there are other acharyas. So from so the flow from a rishi to acharya happens beyond Ishvara Krishna. So this is how the traditional preceptor lineage or the guruparaṃparā is explained in the Shastras. So talking about the guruparaṃparā, the scriptural references, we saw that Kapila Maharishi is the first human recipient of this grand wisdom from Mahavishnu. So the earliest references of Kapila Maharishi occurs in Rig Veda, which is, we all know, is the oldest recorded scripture in the world. So the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, for example, refers to, in this following mantra, refers to 7 heroes who sprang from the lower portion of Prajapati, 8 were born from the upper portion, 9 occupants of high stations came from behind. The 10 generated in front nourished the summit of the heaven. How different rishis evolved from the grand Brahman is what is referred here. So the grand Brahman here is theologized as Prajapati, and among them the 10 generated in the front is what is where Kapila Maharishi fits in. So among the 10, the one Kapila who is the equal of Prajapati, so he is glorified to be equal to Brahman. Prajapati itself theologized as Prajapati. Okay, so he has come with the sacrifice, completion of a sacrifice. So he has come with a mission. So these are all as avatara. So the Rig Veda considers this as an avatara, where Mahavishnu we saw transitioned to Kapila Maharishi, and Kapila Maharishi is glorified as equal to Prajapati, and that's how the avatarana of the guruparaṃparā and the Sāṃkhya darśana has come. Okay, so this is what the Rig Veda says. Then Sāṃkhya Karika is one of the prasthana granthas of the Sāṃkhya philosophies. Here its acharya is Sri Ishvara Krishna. This is one of the oldest available classical Sāṃkhya doctrines, I mean treatises available. Here in one of the slokas, it is mentioned thus: this abstruse adapted to the fulfillment of the purpose of the spirit, wherein the origin, duration, and dissolution of beings are considered, has been expounded by the great sage. So he refers to Kapila, and what is being discussed here: origin, duration, and dissolution of beings. So the entire cosmological or cosmogenesis is what is discussed here. This supreme purification doctrine the sage imparted to Asuri. So the lineage is explained here, who taught it to Panchashika, by whom the philosophy was extensively propagated, handed down through a long tradition of pupils. Post that it has been transferred through centuries to various acharyas. So it has been briefly written up in the Arya meter. So whatever is written here, the script is in the Arya meter, okay, and by Ishwara Krishna. This is what is mentioned here. So this is one more testimony on the guruparaṃparā. Next, let us look at reference in the Upanishads. So, for example, here in the śāstradarśīka Upanishad, it is given that he is the one who rules all the places and is all the colors and all the sources, who filled with multifarious knowledge, the sage Kapila, when he was born in the beginning, and whom he saw as he was being born. So this of the Rishim, so here it is referred to as a Rishim. Rishim means a seer. So Kapila is glorified here in the Upanishad. So we saw that it getting glorified in the Rig Veda. Now we are seeing it in the Upanishad. And then there's a reference in the Itihāsa like Valmiki Ramayana, where it is referred to whom this Mother Earth belongs in all her eternity. He is that prescient Vasudeva. So again here a reference to how Kapila Maharishi is an avatara of Mahavishnu, and he is also a consort of Madhava, and that Vishnu eternally props up Mother Earth. Hence that reverential Vishnu donning the semblance of sage Kapila. So this is again a glorification of Lord Kapila in Valmiki Ramayana by Maharishi Valmiki. Similarly, Brahmanda Puranam says that the holy Lord Kapila, the most excellent among victorious ones, the roost exalted among the leading yogins, is born on the earth with the partial power of Vishnu for the welfare of the universe. So this is what the Purana. So we saw from the Rig Veda, then we saw the Prasthana Grantha, and then we saw the Itihāsa, we saw the Upanishad, and now we are seeing a Puranic reference of sāṅkhya, of Kapila and his philosophies in the Mahapuranas. Similarly, Vishnu Dharmottara Purana also says thus: the eastern face is called Saumya, southern face Narasimha, the western Kapila, and the northern Varaha. So this is again another testimony saying that Vishnu, Kapila Maharishi is avatara of Mahavishnu. So this is another great testimony. Then let's look at another famous itihāsa, which is Mahabharata, the longest known literature in the world. So here the promulgator of Sāṅkhya cult is said to be the great Rishi Kapila. So the testimony that Sāṅkhya darśana, the founding father is Kapila, is occurring in the Mahabharata. Then Sri Matara, who provided a vritti on the Sāṅkhya Karika, further testive Sāṅkhya Karika, as we saw, is Ishwara Krishna's Prasthana Grantha on Sāṅkhya darśana. So where in the Mata Vritti, what is told is, for the glorious Maharishi endowed with innate merit, dharma, knowledge, jñāna, dispassion, vairagya, and power, an incarnation of avatar of the glorious ancient Purusha, out of a desire to show kindness to the world of some Prajapati, Kandana, named Kapila, came here in Devahuti. So he was born to Devahuti, the daughter of Swayambhu Manu. So this is another testimony of Kapila and his divine origins. I mean, to top all these references, we have the great verdict by none other than Gitacharya, Bhagavan Sri Krishna Paramatma, who says that he is the Kapila among the Munis. So Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi. So what he says that so this is another great glory to Kapila. So we were seeing that Kapila Maharishi as the avatara of Mahavishnu. Here Mahavishnu in the Vibhavatara of Sri Krishna Paramatma testifies that he is Kapilas among the Munihi. Munihi means he is a sage who contemplates on spirituality. So that is another thing. And Adi Shankaracharya in his famous Bhashya on the Bhagavad Gita sloka says Sarva Vrikshanam, among all trees, I am Ashwata and Narada, like so that he goes. And finally, he also says that I am the Munihi among the sage of Kapila. So he also endorses it. So what Krishna Paramatma declares in the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Mahabharata, as recorded by Vedavyasa Maharishi, is further explained and testified by the Acharyas like Adi Shankaracharya in his Bhashya. Similarly, Madhvacharya who also in his Bhashya, Adi Shankaracharya, as you know, is the Paramacharya for the Kevaladvaita darśana, while Madhvacharya is the Paramacharya for the Advaita Vedanta darśana. So Madhvacharya also refers as part of his commentary eulogizes Kapila thus Kapila thus iti, because by him who is of the form of happiness, Sukha, the world is protected and also dissolved, because of his designation as delight, Priti, happiness, Sukha, joy. So he gives more of what Kapila, the term, and the guru and his philosophy represents. He who he declares, referring to the Chandogya Upanishad, he who at the beginning sustains by knowledge, jñāna, the seer Kapila, who has been brought forth and who should see him being born. From the infinite happiness, Sukha, from protecting, from dissolving, they indeed call him the deity Kapila. Thus, iti in the Barbariya branch of Samaveda. So this is again a major testimony on right from why Kapila is named Kapila, what it means. So Jayatita in his commentary to the Madhava Bhashya further provides a very detailed reference of the etymological meaning and its contextual understanding and its significance. So he says that among the accomplished ones, Siddhas, Kapila is the sage Muni. He explains the word Shabda Kapila, pleasure, Sukha, of the form of pleasure, Sukha. This is Ka. So the Kapila, it takes the term, it derives it etymologically, the term Kapila, because the world is protected by this. So Ka means the pleasure, the P means the protection. So that is how Jayatita provides a very interesting derivation of the term Kapila, and he further continues, Kapila is a rishi because of the omniscience, sarvajñata, that is said he who by knowledge of jñāna of the world sustains among the sustains meaning knows. So basically, he explains how the Nya concept referred to by is Guru, and relating it to the Kapila's name, and how the significance of Kapila is very beautifully explained in this in this commentary on Madhva by Jayatirtha. So, maybe because of lack of time, not reading it fully, but I'm just giving you the context. Okay. Then moving on, coming back to Mahabharata, here how there is a close partnership between the twins of Sāṃkhya and Yoga Darshanas is highlighted at multiple places in Mahabharata. We will deep dive when we get into the details. But here I just wanted to highlight the verses from Mahabharata, which says that there is no knowledge like that of Sāṃkhya, no power like that of Yoga. You should have no doubt as a Sāṃkhya being the highest knowledge. So far, what we were seeing, how Kapila Maharishi has been glorified and has been divinized as an avatar of Mahavishnu, right from his name as a very deep philosophical significance, all that we saw. Here in this reference of Mahabharata, is philosophy, that is the Sāṃkhya philosophy, is glorified. So it says that there is no knowledge like that of Sāṃkhya. So that is a very, very strongly worded glorification for Sāṃkhya philosophy. Probably that is why Mahavishnu also says that I am Sāṃkhya among the Munis. Okay. So again, the Shvetasvara Upanishad further glorifies, one becomes freed from all the bondages by knowing the deity, who is the cause and who can be known through Sāṃkhya and Yoga, who being the eternal among eternal, the consciousness among the conscious, alone dispenses the desired objects to many. So again, this again glorifies the philosophy of Kapila Maharishi, which is the Sāṃkhya darśana, and its close integration with or close synthesis with this Yoga darśana, about which we will see subsequently. So far we have been seeing how the traditional scriptural corpus have been glorifying Kapila Maharishi and his philosophy, which is Sāṃkhya darśana. Now we will see how the more recent contemporaries of the last 2 centuries are referring to it. Swami Vivekananda, for example, glorifies it thus. All these darshanas that you have ever seen or heard are based upon Upanishad's authority. Whenever they want to quote a Shruti, they mean the Upanishads. They are always quoting the Upanishads. Following the Upanishads, there come the philosophies of India, but every one of them failed in getting that hold on India, which the philosophy of Vyasa got hold or got. Although the philosophy of Vyasa is a development of an older one, the Sāṃkhya, and every philosophy and every system in India, I mean throughout the world, owes much to Kapila. Perhaps the greatest name in the history of India is psychologist and philosophical of India in the psychological and philosophical lines. So this is a great, glorification of Kapila Maharishi and his philosophy. Swami Vivekananda actually echoes what the Mahabharata says, that is that. So I repeat, following the Upanishads, there came other philosophies of India, where he refers to Vyasa and other philosophies. And he says Vyasa's philosophy is a development out of an older one in Sāṃkhya. So Vyasa, we probably referring to Vyasa's Vedanta darśana. So for example, there is a school of thought where Vyasa and Badarayana Maharishi are the same. Of course, some scholars and some acharyas differ, but the popular opinion is Vedavyasa and Badarayana Maharishi. Or same Badarayana Maharishi, as we know, is one of the key proponents of the Vedanta theories through his Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. So the Vedanta is an evolution from Sāṃkhya, is what I understand as interpreted by Sāṃkhya. And every philosophy, value system, India owes its to Sāṃkhya. This we will see how Sāṃkhya forms the can be called of the mother of Indian philosophies, because most of the philosophies evolve from it, adapt to certain doctrines of it, and also reject some of it. So we will be seeing when we do a comparative analysis of Sāṃkhya with other darshanas. So continuing with what Vivekananda says, I mean, throughout the world owes much to Kapila, perhaps the greatest name in the history of India. The influence of Kapila is everywhere, seen throughout the world. Wherever there is a recognized system of thought, there you can trace his influence. Even if thousands of years back, yet he stands there, the shining, glorious, wonderful Kapila. His psychology and a good deal of his philosophy have been accepted by all the sects of India with but very little differences. This is a very, very true statement. We will see how this statement gets justified as we go along. Elsewhere, again, Swami Vivekananda again reiterates that the Sāṃkhya philosophy of Kapila was the first rational system that the world ever saw. So he is now taking it at a global scale, saying that this is one of the earliest doctrines on rationality or logic, etc. That every metaphysician in the world must pay homage to him. I want to impress on your mind that we are bound to listen to him as the great father of philosophy. This wonderful man, the most ancient of philosophers, is mentioned even in the Shruti. O Lord, thou who produced the sage Kapila in the beginning, how wonderful his perceptions were, and if there is any proof required of the extraordinary power of the perception of yogis, such men are the proof. They had no microscopes or telescopes, yet how fine their perception was, how perfect and wonderful their analysis of things. So this is again a very, very, very profound declaration of Swami Vivekananda on Kapila and his philosophy. So just as how Swami Vivekananda explained, there is almost no school of thought where Sāṃkhya has not directly or indirectly influenced the thinking process, either in accepting their thought or in rejecting their thought. Okay, so we will see both what all has been accepted and what all has been rejected as we go along by different schools. So the length of includes the ontological aspects, which most of the schools have accepted, epistemology, which is common to many schools, the soteriology, the psychological aspects have been imbibed in various darshanas, and the breadth of their influence are in the classical darshanas and the Shaiva Siddhanta systems, which are part of the Agamas and the Tantras, the Puranas and the Itihāsas. Okay. So the depth of the influence, there is a direct adoption, there is a theological retrofit. We saw the Sāṃkhya poets, both theistic, atheistic, as well as agnostic. So there is a theological retrofit happening. Whether it is then there is polemical influences. As I said, not all aspects of Sāṃkhya has been accepted by all darshanas. There are a lot of criticism around the Sāṃkhya darshanas also. So there is a lot of scope for polemics around the Sāṃkhya darshana, and there is a cultural diffusion. So overall, there looks like there's a huge cultural diffusion. Okay, so because of readability, I'm just trying to maximize it. So Sāṃkhya darshanas, the proto aspect can be traced back to the Vedas and the Upanishads, like the Nasadya Sukta, the Purusha Sukta, etc. Then we can trace it back to the Mahabharata or the epics. Okay, for example, the Moksha Parva of Mahabharata discusses at length. Then there is Panchashika version of Panchashika is a Maharishi. His version of of the Sāṃkhya is also recorded in the Mahabharata, which is again one of the oldest references of Sāṃkhya. Then Ayurveda has its own references. So we will be discussing how Ayurveda as particularly the Charaka Samhita has a lot of references to the Sāṃkhya Darshana, its tattvas, its philosophy, and relating it to the three doshas, etc. Then there is a reference, as we saw already, that yoga is a synthetic partner of Sāṃkhya Darshana. So how yoga and Sāṃkhya get to it. And in the Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Vishnu Purana, Skanda Purana, Padma Purana, various Puranas refer to Kapila Maharishi and his doctrines. Okay, then comes to the actual Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, Shuddha Advaita Vedanta. So various schools of Vedanta refer to or use Sāṃkhya as part of their ontology, as part of their epistemology, and also they differ from it in various ways. We will discuss about them. Okay, then there is the Agamanta, like the Vedanta, there is the Agamanta, which is also called as the Siddhanta, which is also called as the Tantra schools, which includes the Shaiva, Vaishnava, and the Shakta schools. So this is this slide basically I leveraged GenAI to generate it just to show the spread of Sāṃkhya Darshana across various parts of Indian knowledge system. So then we will see how modern Western scholars and subject matter experts researching on Sāṃkhya and its ecosystem have discussed about Sāṃkhya. So, for example, here we have Christopher Chappell, who explains this in his as part of his famous work, the Sāṃkhya system accounting for the real, wherein he says that the principles and an inherent call to action embedded in Sāṃkhya inform all schools of Indian thought, even beyond its five companions that desire logic. Like the śāstradarśīka is basically referring to the śāstradarśīna, which includes jñāna, mīmāmsa, vaisheshika, Vedanta, yoga, etc. So what he is trying to explain here is that how the Sāṃkhya darshana is penetrative into the different parts of the śāstradarśīna itself. So that is what he says, and also as noted above, he continues, elements of Buddhism and Jainism traditions exist in the dynamic conversations with Sāṃkhya. So not only the Śāstradarśīnas of the classical Vedic schools, but also with the Vedic schools, which are called as the Brahmana Sampradaya. Then there is also the Shramana Sampradaya, which includes the Buddhist and the Jainis schools of thought. So Sāṃkhya also plays a very important role in the knowledge exchange between these schools. So we'll be discussing about that also. And this is again AI generated mind map to say to just give you the larger picture of how Sāṃkhya cuts across multiple disciplines of human thought. So from a breadth of influence into Purana, Itihāsa, okay, which we all touched upon already, the cultural diffusion, okay. So how the various ontological tattvas, the 25 tattvas which are part of the Vedantic darshanas, is expanded to 36 tattvas in the Agamanta, the Siddhanta Darshanas, for example, both the Shaiva Siddhanta, the Kashmir Saivism, Veera Saivism, all schools of Saivism refer to 36 tattvas. So we will be looking at it, and then we will also be looking about the concept of suffering, which is common to both Buddhism and various schools of Hinduism, and how the point of necessity is the mother of invention. So suffering is a problem statement, and how moksha from suffering is has to be achieved is the entire focus of all the darshanas, including Sāṃkhya darśana. So then there is a soteriological aspect, the epistemology, etc. Then how the references to the Upanishads, etc. And we also talk about the different cosmological, the Satkaryavada and the Parinamavada, which becomes one of the most important doctrines from Sāṃkhya philosophy, which is again common to various other schools of Vedanta and also the Siddhanta schools, and how it contrasts with the Asatkaryavada, etc. We will be discussing. Okay, so we saw that there is theistic aspect of Sāṃkhya and how it integrates with the Vedantic and the Bhakti schools of Vedanta, as well as the Siddhanta schools. So with this, I just wanted to conclude the glory and significance of Kapila and his teachings, and how it has a very deeply rooted presence, cutting across various darshanas of India, including Vedanta, Siddhanta, Buddhism, Jainism, etc. We touched upon all these things from testimonial references of subject matter experts. With that, we move on to the next part of the discussion, which is focusing on the historical aspects. So earlier is more on the gloriology, the mythological aspects of its references across the scriptures. Now we will look more from a historical growth of Sāṃkhya as a philosophical school of thought. Okay, so this is the second part of the discussion. I mean, just mapping it to the larger agenda. So we discussed the the first topic as the guruparaṃparā. Now we are moving to the next topic, the historical chronology. So from a historical perspective, according to subject matter expert like James Larson, so there are the entire evolution of Sāṃkhya as a philosophical thought can be classified under 4 major phases. So this is how Larson classifies the history of Sāṃkhya's evolution. So the first phase is the ancient speculation, including the speculative Vedic hymns and the oldest prose Upanishads, extending from the 8th or the 9th century BCE. So historically, we trace it back to 8th or 9th century BCE, and from that comes the phase 2, which is the proto-Sāṃkhya phase, which speculates including the middle Upanishads. So right from the Vedic period, Vedic means the Vedas are again classified under 4 major horizontal classes, right? So there is the mantra section, then the Brahmana section, then the Aranyaka section, and then the Upanishad section. So phase 1, he probably refers to all the references at the earlier references, including the mantra section of the Vedas. And in the proto-Sāṃkhya, how it gets expanded into the Upanishad sections, which is part of the Vedanta or the Jnana Kanda of the Upanishads, I mean of the Vedas, as well as in the other ancient treatises like Ayurveda, as well as in the historical documents like Buddha Charita, and of course the Bhagavad Gita, etc., and the Mahabharata. All these are part of the proto-sāṅkhya phase. So this is the next phase. The phase 3 is a classical Sāṅkhya. The classical Sāṅkhya starts with the Karika of Sāṅkhya of Ishvara Krishna, and correspondingly, I mean, more or less the same time frame, we have Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which focuses on the Yoga Darshana, while Sāṅkhya focuses on the Sāṅkhya Darshana. But this Yoga and Sāṅkhya are a twin pair, and because they share a lot of common features, we will be discussing about them. Okay, so this part forms the phase 3. Okay, and then there is the fourth phase, which is the later Sāṅkhya speculations. So where the Sāṅkhya Pravachana Sutra comes in, and then we have the commentatorial things of Aniruddha, Mahadeva, Vijnana Bhikshu, etc. The Sāṅkhya Pravachana Sutra is also associated to Kapila Maharishi. But whether it is that historical Kapila Maharishi, the founder, or not, is more of an academic research dispute, because based on literary historicity, the Sāṅkhya Pravachana Sutra is coming to a much later period than the Sāṅkhya Karika. That's why Larson here has classified the Sāṅkhya Pravachana Sutra as part of the phase 4, although it is associated to Kapila Maharishi. So the tradition, so this is more of an academic, so the traditional assessment is that the Sāṅkhya Sutras of Kapila Maharishis are lost, so we don't have it. However, there's a revised version of what is found in the Sāṅkhya Pravachana Sutra, which happens to be later than the Sāṅkhya Karika. So this is how Gerald James, who is considered to be one of the greatest authorities on the Sāṅkhya Darshana from Western ontology. So this is how he classifies it. So if you look at it here, these 4 phases, I would revisit these phases when we talk about the 3 major branches of Sāṅkhya, basically the theistic, the agnostic, and the atheistic models. I just want to highlight here is that the phase 2, which belongs to the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, which is called as the Proto-Sāṅkhya, there is more of the Ishvara acknowledged Sāṅkhya Darshana, which is the theistic model of Sāṅkhya, which during the classical phase turned more towards what we can call it as the atheistic and an agnostic model. And in phase 4, there is again synergizing between these 2 models, particularly by acharyas like Vigna Bhikshu and Vachaspati Mishra, etc., as part of their bhashyas. So we'll take a look at them. So this is one school of thought where the theological version of Sāṅkhya is earlier than the atheistic and the agnostic version, is what one school of expert opinion is. The other school of expert opinion varies slightly on this, and they say that the original version of Sāṅkhya is the classical Sāṅkhya, which is the atheistic version. The theistic version of it is a later addition to the original corpuses, is what another school of research, but the debate continues. I don't think there is any Boolean answer of who's more right than the other. Another way of looking these 4 phases into a 3-phased hierarchy, where phase 1 talks about the intellectual inquiry into the oldest learned traditions of ancient India. So as he said, from the pre-Vedic period. And second phase in the development of the Sāṅkhya term. So phase 1 of the earlier slide is hold, and phase 2 and 3 of earlier slide is now becoming phase 2 here. The second phase in the development of Sāṅkhya begins from the period of the Buddhistic Upanishad tradition, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, etc. And then there is the phase 3. The third phase is the development of the term Sāṅkhya, marks the beginning of the technical philosophical tradition and coincides with the end of the second period. So here he gives more of the chronological datings of BCEs and CEs. So the common, how before common era and through the common era, the Sāṃkhya philosophy evolved through three phases. This is another perspective of that, more from it says that how it can be traced from 800 BCE, and the school of thought continues from 800 BCE to 1400 CE. So that is a very long term of its evolution. So that means how important Sāṃkhya darśana is the moral that we take away here. It's a key takeaway of this is that Sāṃkhya darśana is part of the sanātanadharma. That means it has been eternally available to us, and it has a very rich historical heritage. Again, to quote Larson, the original philosophical formulation occurs with the emergence of pre-Karika Sāṃkhyas, and the normative formulations in summary form appears in Karika Sāṃkhya and Patanjala Sāṃkhya. Somewhere in these ancient traditions, there appears to have been a clear break with the original genius and vitality of the system, and the later traditions of Karika Kaumudi Sāṃkhya. Sāṃkhya Kaumudi is basic commentary on the Sāṃkhya Karika by Vachaspati Mishra. So Samasa Sāṃkhya, and these are all commentorial texts. So there is how the Sāṃkhya darśana is closely compared and integrated with the Vedanta darshanas by the Sacharyas like Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnana Bhikshus, who are also great Vedantic Bhashyakaras or Acharyas. So how these Vedanta and Sāṃkhya are integrated is what is highlighted here. So we already saw that Sāṃkhya is closely integrated with the Patanjali's yoga, and that is again, that integration is very beautifully highlighted by Vyasa Maharishi in his famous Bhashya to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and also followed by Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnana Bhikshu. Even there is also said to be a commentary by Adi Shankara himself on the Yoga Sutras. So we will see how yoga and Sāṃkhya are closely integrated. Similarly, what is highlighted here is that Sāṃkhya and Vedanta are also very closely integrated. So this is what James Larson has highlighted. Of course, we will also see in the subsequent slides how Sāṃkhya is also closely integrated with the Siddhanta schools like Saiva Siddhanta or even Kashmir Saivism as we move along. Okay, now coming to the three major branches of Sāṃkhya. So there is the Sheshwara Sāṃkhya, which, as I keep saying, is the theistic declarative philosophy, which is one branch of Sāṃkhya. Then there is the theistic atheistic declarative Sāṃkhya, which is the Sheshwara Nirishwara Sāṃkhya darśana, which provides a hybrid model between theism and atheism, bordering on the agnostic model. And then there is the Nirishwara Sāṃkhya darśana, which is the atheistic declaration. So, according to some scholars, this is how the period is. We already saw that there is a dispute in thoughts. I'm trying to share both the schools, where according to one school, the earlier period of Sāṃkhya was basically from the sources like the Mahabharata, Mahapuranas, etc., at a theistic origin. And then there is the classical Sāṃkhya. So there is a proto phase of Sāṃkhya. Then there is a classical Sāṃkhya, which is the middle phase, where the theistic there is a second phase, which is the theistic phase, where references of Sāṃkhya are confirmed in the Mahabharata as well as in the Charaka Samhita. So this is phase 2. Phase 2 is bridging the gap between theism and atheism. And third phase is what the classical Sāṃkhya is. So I made a mistake earlier. So the third phase is what the classical Sāṃkhya is, according to the school of classification on the historicity of the Sāṃkhya evolution. So this is again another timeline using using GenAI. So right from 800 BCE to 1000 CE, as we already discussed some of these concepts, I just so from proto-sāṃkhya we have then the medical treatises, just like the Charaka Samhitas in Ayurveda, and then Ishvara Krishna's Sāṃkhya Karika, and Gaudapada Bhashya, etc. And then there is the post-classical era of Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnana Bhikshu, etc. And then there is a final modern era. So right from the 18th century to present, how Sāṃkhya philosophy has been evolving. So this is again reiterating of whatever we say. So there is a Vedic period of the Purusha cosmic being are found in the Purusha Sukta of the Rig Veda. Of course, other Rigvedic references also will be there, like the Nasadaya Sukta, etc. Then the Upanishads like the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Shvetashvetara Upanishad, etc., which we already discussed. And the three guna qualities is there in the Chandogya Upanishad. So these are some testimonies of various things. So as far as the itihāsas, we already discussed, it is dealt at length with in the Mahabharata. Then the second period is in the Panchashika version of Kapilas. So the Panchashika Sāṃkhya darśana, which is recorded in the Mahabharata. The original Panchashika text seems to be lost. That's what I understand. But the references of that, the detailed references, in fact, is found in the Mahabharata. Then the Charaka Samhita we already discussed about. So, and then there are also references, interestingly, in Tamil ancient classical texts, like the Manimekalai, which is a magnum opus masterpiece of Sīdalai Sātanath, which integrates various philosophy as part of an epic story, just as Mahabharata does it. So here there's a darśanikadr reference to the Sāṃkhya darśana. Similarly, there is one more Jain text. While Manimegala is more of a Buddhist text, there is a Jain text called as Nilakesi. So, which is again a very important reference point in Tamil on Sāṃkhya darśana. So these are some of the earliest references to Sāṃkhya darśana in classical Tamil. Moving on, then there is various other text, like in the Sāṃkhya classical period of Sāṃkhya darśana, which we already talked about. So I'm just skipping here. And then the key highlight is acharyas like Vijnana Bhikshu try to integrate the three major domains, Sāṃkhya darśana, Yoga darśana, and Vedanta, specifically the Advaita Vedanta darśana. So that's why I have highlighted it separately here. We will be discussing about it in depth again. Okay, so this is again about Vijnana Bhikshu. So this is again a larger picture of this. I am skipping this because we have discussed it at length. So this ends the second part of the topic on Sāṃkhya darśana, where we discussed about the historical and historiographical evolution of Sāṃkhya darshanas, and as testified in various treatises and subject matter and by various scholars and subject matter experts. Now we will move on to the third part of the discussion, which focuses on the important treatises, the scriptural corpuses of Sāṃkhya darśana. So again, contextualizing with the larger agenda, this is the third chapter. So we already discussed about the guruparaṃparā, and then we discussed about the historicity of the Sāṃkhya evolution. And then now we move on to the scriptural corpus. So the Sāṃkhya darśana scriptures can basically be bucketized under the various corpuses, including the Veda Samhitas or the Vedic corpuses. Then there is the Prasthana Sāṃkhya granthas, like the one of Ishvara Krishna or the Kapilas, etc. And then there is the bhashyas of that. I mean, this again looks like a typo from my side, just repeated the same thing here. And then there is references in the itihāsas, and then there is the particularly the itihāsa, particularly the Mahabharata, and then there is the Agama Shastras. See, the Agama Shastras, the Saiva Agamas, the Sakta Agamas, the Vaishnava Agamas. So also have a lot of references to the Sāṃkhya philosophies, both from acceptance and its rejection perspectives, and all that we will be seeing. And then various other scriptures. So if we'll break down each of these buckets that we discussed in the earlier slide, starting with the Vedic corpus. The Vedic corpus, we have the Upanishads. These are again only some sample references. It is not an exhaustive list of the Upanishads cited here or named here. So we have references in the Katha Upanishad, Isavasya Upanishad, Brihadaranya Upanishad, Maitreya Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So there are various Upanishads where the concepts related to the Sāṃkhya darśana are available, or for example, or rather, they were already available in these jñāna kanda of Vedas, which was formulated formally into a darśana later by Kapila Maharishi. Okay, then looking at the Prasthana Kanta, we have one of the oldest historically is the Ishvara Krishna's Sāṃkhya Karika. Then the Kapila Maharishi's revised version of the Sāṃkhya Pravachana Sutra, which is, I mean, as I said, the original version of Kapila Maharishi is lost. So what we have is a revised version, a much later version of Sāṃkhya Pravachana Sutra. And then there is one more text attributed to Kapila Maharishi, which is the Tattva Samasa. So Sāṃkhya Tattva Samasa. And then there is another earlier text, which is the Panchashika Maharishi's Panchashika Sutram, also called as the Shashti Tantra. So these are some of the principal monographs on Sāṃkhya Tattva, focusing specifically on the Sāṃkhya Tattva. Earlier, what the Vedas or the Agamas that we refer to is that among many disciplines, Sāṃkhya concepts are referred there. Here, these are all exclusively Sāṃkhya related texts. Okay, so specifically blowing up Sāṃkhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna, there is a very, very rich commentorial corpus for the Sāṃkhya Karika. So there is something referred to as Jayamangala. There is a text called Jayamangala, which is attributed to Shankaracharya by some. And I mean, which is not, some say is not the actual Adi Shankaracharya, but some other later Shankaracharya. And then there is the Sāṃkhya Karika Swarna Saptati, which is again a very important text. And then one of the most important commentaries is by the eminent Bhashyakara, Sri Vachaspati Mishra, who was not only a Bhashyakara, but he is also one of the greatest thinkers on Sanātanadharma, and particularly on the Vedanta. So here, I mean, here, yes, he has actually branched out in Vedanta of Advaita. So there is a specific branch associated to Mandana Mishra, and which was later expanded by Vachaspati Mishra. So that school of thought. So he is basically a very popular Vedantin. But here he has given a very detailed commentary on the Sāṃkhya's Karika by Ishvara Krishna. So this is again a very interesting part where a Bhashyakara comments objectively across all the darshanas, and he tries to interpret them, providing a seamless philosophy. So Vachaspati Mishra commentary, because it is a very critical commentary, has its own commentorial expansions. So, in other words, Acharyas further commented on Vachaspati Mishra's Sāṅkhya Tattva Kaumudi. So one of them is by Vamsadhara Mishra, which is the Sāṅkhya Tattva Vibhakara. Okay, and then there is one more with Sāṅkhya Tattva Vibhakara, which is by Vamshi Dharmashira. So these bhashyas provide a commentary on the Sāṅkhya Tattva Kaumudi, more leaning towards the Vedanta, more specifically the Advaitic Vedanta point of view. That's how I understand it. And then there is one more very, very important commentary on Sāṅkhya Karika called Yukti Deepika, which is whose authorship is again debated. Some consider him to be by someone by name Sri Rajana. Others feel, there's more of an anonymous author, so the authorship cannot be traced to anything specific. Again, this is again a scholarly debate. But Yukti Deepika is a very, very, very important text when it comes to understanding Sāṅkhya Darshana. And then we have Gaudapadacharya, who's Paramaguru of Adi Shankaracharya. So he has written Bhashya on the Sāṅkhya Karika, so we can understand how important this text is. So Gaudapadacharya, who is the Paramaguru, the guru of Adi Shankara, is Govindapada. His guru is Gaudapadacharya. In fact, the Advaita Vedanta, which is technically called as the which is part of the Uttara Mimamsa and is called as the Kevaladvaita Darshana. So this school formally is founded by Gaudapadacharya, though Adi Shankara institutionalized it, but tradition traces it back to Gaudapadacharya as the main Purvacharya for this doctrine. So such a great Acharya has provided a commentary on the Sāṅkhya Karika of Ishwar Krishna. So, and then there is one more famous Vritti, basically, which is Vritti means a gloss. Which is by Sri Matara, by someone by name Matara. This is again a very important thing. Interestingly, there are also a Persian version of Sāṅkhya, which is called as the Kitab Sāṅkhya. So when through the Arabs and the Persian interactions with India, so the Sāṅkhya Darshana was taken to the larger global readership through the book called Kitab Sāṅkhya. Okay. So next we look at the Sāṅkhya Sutra, so which is the second most important Prasthana Grantha on Sāṅkhya, which the Sāṅkhya Sutra, as I said, is probably a revised version of the Sāṅkhya Sutra of Kapila Maharishi. And the commentorial richness extends to the one provided by Vijnana Bhikshu, which is considered to be one of the best commentaries on this. And then Sri Aniruddhacharya has also provided a vritti on this text. Similarly, Sri Nagesha Bhatta has provided one thing. And Sri Mahadeva Vedantin also has provided a commentary on this. So this text is also very important to understand Sāṅkhya Darshana, particularly the classical aspect of Sāṅkhya Darshana. So then we will look at the other text of based on the Sāṃkhya Tattva Samasa, which is again attributed to Kapila Maharishi. So the commentatorial corpus includes one called Sāṃkhya Tattva Vivechana, which was supposed to be attributed to Shemananda, who is the Bhashyakara. And then there is a Sāṃkhya Kramadīpika, also called as Sāṃkhya Alangara or Sāṃkhya Uttara Prakeshika. Prakeshipika. And then there is the Tattva Yadhartha Deepana by Shiva Bhava Ganesha Dikshita. And then there is the Sarva Upakarani. These are all the commentatorial texts of the Sāṃkhya Tattva Samasa, which is a very abridged version of the Sāṃkhya Darshana attributed to Kapila Maharishi. Then we will take a look at the textual corpuses related to the Sāṃkhya, the Yoga Sāṃkhya philosophy. I mean, from the Yoga schools, how the Sāṃkhya is referred to. So, as I said earlier, one of the greatest references can be found through the Vyasa Maharishi's Patanjali Yoga Sutra Bhashya. Patanjali has written a sutra on the Yoga Darshana. So for which Vyasa Maharishi has written a very detailed commentary. So that is actually bridging not only Yoga and Sāṃkhya, but also Sāṃkhya and Yoga, Sāṃkhya and Vedanta. We will see about it as we go. Similarly, Vachaspati Mishra, just as he wrote the Tattva Kaumudi as part of Sāṃkhya Darshana, here he has written Tattva Vaisaridi as a Tika. So this also integrates these schools. Then Vyasa Maharishi's commentary as a sub-commentary. So there's a Vivarna to it, which is attributed to Adi Shankaracharya, but some say that it is not Adi Shankaracharya, but some other Shankaracharya. This is again more of an academic scholarly dispute on whether this Shankaracharya is Adi Shankaracharya or not. But this is again a very, very important Vivarna on the Vyasa Maharishi's Bhashya on Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. Then we'll look at the references of Sāṃkhya Darshana across the Mahapurana and the Itihāsa texts. So, which Puranas include various Puranas, like the Bhagavata Purana, like the Vishnu Mahapurana, so Devi Bhagavata Purana, then the Brahma Vivarta Purana, the Linga Purana, the Shiva Purana, the Skanda Purana. Only some of them are referred here, the Padma Purana, etc. And of course, as we already discussed, the Mahabharata from the Itihāsa point of view. So we have the Shanti Parva dealing at length with the various schools of Sāṃkhya. And then we, of course, have the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where Shri Krishna Paramacharya gives his discourses to Arjuna in the Kurukshetra. So this also has a very detailed section on Sāṃkhya. And Anugita is another Gita as part of the Sāṃkhya, I mean as part of the Mahabharata. Here also references to Sāṃkhya Darshana can be seen. Then moving on to the Agama Shastras, which is including both the Shaiva Agama, Shakta Agama, and Vaishnava Agamas. So Agama Shastra are the parallel schools of theory to the Veda Shastras. So we already saw Sāṃkhya's influence in Veda Samhitas. Now we will look at the Agama Shastras. So their Samhitas can be classified under Saiva, Shakta, and Vaishnava. So within the Saiva itself, there is the Vedavada, Vedavada, and Abhedavada. All three schools, all these agamas have some references to the Sāṃkhya and its philosophies. So similarly, the Shakta agamas, we have the Dakshinachara, the Mishrachara, the Vamachara schools, where also Sāṃkhya plays a very important role. And then coming to Vaishnava Agama, there are two major branches, which is the Vaikanasa Agama as well as the Pancharatra Agama. Sorry, there's a typo here. The English has not changed. It is the Pancharatra Agama. Both these agamas also have references to the Sāṃkhya darśana. So thus we see that the Sāṃkhya darśana has spread out across the Vedic corpus, the agamic corpus, across the various darshanas, etc. Okay, and this is just a summary of what all we discussed in a single table. Okay, I'm not getting into this here. Moving on to the from the shastras, the acharyas or the maharishis behind the shastras are also just highlighted here, right from Ishwara Krishna, Vachaspati Mishra, Kapila Maharishi. I mean, I have not put it necessarily in a chronological order. I've just put it just like that. So in a random order, so Jñāna Bhikshu is there, Sri Veda Vyasa Maharishi is there, Gaudapadacharya is there, Abhinava Gupta as part of his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, as well as so in his Tantra Loka and other texts. There are a lot of references to this. We will discuss in depth of these texts. And then there is Adi Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhusudana Saraswati, etc. play a major role. And then more recent contemporaries of the last few centuries. We have Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Radha Krishnan, Sirendranath Dasgupta, great scholars. Okay, see Ram Shankar Bhattacharya, Nandal Sinha. So, sorry, I couldn't find their photos in the while I googled it, so I just put these faceless profiles. So then there is the Chatyopadhyaya, then there is Bhattacharya, K.C. Bhattacharya. So then there is Majumdar. These are also not exhaustive names. So then there is Chandra Sharma, Guleri, etc. These are all great scholars on Sāṃkhya philosophy, and Acharyas also like Swami Vivekananda and Aurobindo, etc. Coming to the Western, so far we have seen the Indian side of scholarship and research around it. Now we will move on to the Western Indology. So like Franklin Edton, Gerald James Larson, Johnson, and then Rainwain Potter, Eliad, Mircea Eliad, who's a great scholar on yoga. Okay, then there is Hor. So there are a lot of like Keith is a great guy, Garbage. So they have given a lot of insights and perspectives on the Sāṃkhya darśana, both from his philosophical as well as his historical context. So with this, we close the topic on the historicity. I mean, on the scriptural traditions of Sāṃkhya. So far today we have discussed the guruparaṃparā. Then we moved on to the historical aspects of the Sāṃkhya school of evolution, and then we moved on to the scriptural corpus, the richness of the scriptural corpus, including the core corpuses, right, tracing from the Vedic and the agamic sources, and the Prasthanatraya, the core corpuses specific to Sāṃkhya, and its rich commentatorial treatises. So with this, I conclude today's session. The next session, we will be deep diving into the philosophical aspects of Sāṃkhya, starting with first from its etymology. So the term Sāṃkhya itself has a very deep philosophical significance. So we'll understand starting with its etymology in the subsequent sessions. So thanks for your listening. With this, I conclude today's session, and we stay tuned for the subsequent sessions. So I stop sharing my deck. So thanks again for your patient listening. So these sessions will be a little detailed and comprehensive because I wanted to give some justice to Sāṃkhya darśana, which is considered to be the mother of Indian philosophies and imbibed by almost all the schools of philosophy. So that I wanted to give some greater emphasis on this, because Sāṃkhya as a philosophy is not discussed much, at least in the current days of social media and other things. So I think as part of Indian knowledge systems, the understanding of Sāṃkhya and its contribution to not only Indian thinking, but also for global thinking is very important. So I have spent some time in accumulating a lot of data, researching on it, and I'm just trying to present it. So this will continue. I mean, this is going to be a very detailed discussion. So, I mean, to be honest, there are more than 350 to 400 slides on the whole on Sāṃkhya itself, which I'll be splitting it into across sessions. So I need your cooperation and your support in first helping us understand Sāṃkhya philosophy and appreciating it, and also in sharing it to a larger network of people, so that as Tirumala says, Yam Petra Imbam Peruga Vayagam, let the glory of Sāṃkhya darśana outreach the global audience. Okay, and let Sāṃkhya as a philosophy revive. Thanks again. So we'll catch up in the next session. Stay tuned. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shanti. Om Shanti.